Welcome to another episode of Start with a Leaf, which is the personal challenge that I have set for myself this year. And by challenge, I mean something that I just want to keep in mind as I'm working on my art for the year. I want to start with a leaf, and in my case, it's probably going to be a real leaf. But in your case, if you're playing along with me, it doesn't have to be a real leaf. It could be a leaf you cut out of a magazine. It could be a leaf you're stitching onto some embroidery. It could be a leaf you stamped onto a piece of fabric. But for me, I want to start with a leaf as my inspiration and see where it takes me. So what I'm going to show you first are a few experiments that I did, and I actually thought about stopping the video right there with these experiments where I was just kind of playing around with how I could get the leaf color on the page. And I was going to stop right there and do a video about how things don't have to be perfect to really be a wonderful process, because I really enjoyed making the two sample pieces that I'm going to show you first. And then I decided I was going to go ahead and leave them in here and then show you the final project that I decided. Final isn't the good word. The project that I decided to start. That's it. It's nothing's final because I'm just getting going on it. And what I decided to do is I am going to keep a sketchbook of leaves in my yard and my garden and around the property here, and record them in the ways that you're going to see that I'm doing with the leaves that I chose today. All right, so let's dive in. So today's leaves are from my dogwood tree, red twig dogwood, and I chose them because, of course, the beautiful color. And here are some samples, and the idea that for these samples came from the class I'm taking with the marvelous artist Alice Fox. I just adore her and her work, and I am learning so much in the class that I am taking with her. And so what she talked about was ways to get color on paper using natural materials, and she rubbed a leaf on the page and got this color. So I thought, well, I have some dogwood leaves that I'm looking out my window on the deck, and I can see these dogwood leaves have some great color on them still. Let me give them a try. And that's what I came up with. So I grabbed a sketchbook and decided to see if I could actually record it in a sketchbook so that I could then put more leaves in there throughout the rest of the year. And this is not traditional flower pounding, even though I had done some of that years ago. I think flower pounding, you're supposed to have the leaf. I don't know. There's a lot of things you could go look up on flower pounding, but I think you pound from the leaf down. And I wanted to kind of protect the paper underneath. And I'm just kind of I'm winging this, you guys. You know me. You know, I do a little bit of research. I watch a few videos, and then I dive into the deep end and dog paddle just as fast as I can. So the reason I decided to start with the dogwood trees is twofold. One, look at the color, right? Most of the dogwoods down in the lower part of the property have already lost all their leaves. I mean, we're talking about second week here in January. But these up on the deck, all of them except for one tree, because I've got them in some half wine barrels, and I'll tell you why. All of them except for one tree have lost their leaves on the deck, but this one on the deck has got still some green and some red, and I got different colors depending on which leaf I used. So I'm just playing around with how I want the leaves to look on the page, what I want to do with the branches. What I discovered in my experiments was that the branches gave me some fabulous color as well on the page for getting some straight lines. Not as bright and as deep as the leaves, but it was still some interesting things. I mean, my brain literally is like pinball machining, boom, 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 all over the place right now, because I have all these ideas of how I want to do the sketchbook, but then how it can translate into larger pieces of art. And the reason I'm excited, people, the reason I want to share this with you is because I got to this point of being excited by playing around first with something that was just turned out okay, but not anything that I would call a piece of art. We have to experiment. We have to give ourselves permission to just fall down flat on our face. I did 3 experiments the other day, and all 3 of them were garbage. I mean, okay, they were stinky. They weren't like, they've been left out in the sun for too long, like dead fish, but stinky, but they were pretty bad. And I might go back and try to do something with them again, but I'm probably just going to leave them alone because I got so excited by doing this. And you can see I put a piece of paper under the sketchbook page to protect it, and then over the top, this is, again, something that I learned when I was just playing around with the experimental pieces. There are different ways to do this. You can Google whatever you want to figure out how to do this on your own. I do not advise you doing what I did at the end of this video when I wanted to add a little bit more to the page and my hammer slipped and I really nailed one of my fingernails. So I got a nice big black and blue spot underneath my fingernail, and it doesn't hurt as bad as it could have. But I'm just kind of pounding away, checking every so often to see what I've got. And I'm just going to kind of ramble talk while you watch what's going on today, because I want to go back to what I said. I experimented. I did some things that didn't turn out right, and then I kept going back and experimenting again. I tried one thing, I didn't like it. I tried something else, I didn't like it. I tried another thing that I used to be able to do really well, and it didn't come out the way I wanted it to. And I just put all that stuff aside in the studio, and I came out and decided to try this. And that's what art is, right? It's experimenting. It's doing things that don't come out quite the way we want them to. It is playing around with ideas and twisting them, turning them on their head, watching maybe somebody else for inspiration, and then going back and doing our take on it. In my Facebook group, some people have started doing the Start with a Leaf challenge, and it's so exciting to see how each of them are interpreting the idea. And there's been some stitched leaf projects in there that are like, wow, I tell you what, Allie and Debbie, I'm looking at both of you. They were awesome. And it's got me excited now to go back and do some more stitching. Okay, I'm checking to see if I have any color. I was wondering if the paper I was using made a big difference, because this sketchbook, I don't know, it's watercolor paper. I don't know that it's 100% cotton. I don't know what else they would do with watercolor paper if it wasn't all cotton. But the experimental pieces that I used were 100% cotton rag. They were caddy paper. And I don't know whether that made a difference, or if the fact that they were single sheets and things were harder, or it was just a different part of the tree, because I took this all from the same tree. See, now look at, I've got some lines there. Can't you imagine? I mean, this particular sketchbook, I'm not going to use anything other than what I get from the plants. But in other art projects, I can totally imagine tracing over that with a fine pen, or adding some watercolor to it. I'll be adding some of my homemade inks as I get them made. I've got some stuff soaking right now for some Dogwood ink. So, you know, this is still experimenting, and the sketchbook is not necessarily going to be done as a piece of fine art that's going to hang on my wall. It's going to be done as a memory project for me to remember what these leaves have brought to me in this garden. The reason I started with dogwoods are because it was the very first plant that I ever learned how to propagate. And in our old house, we didn't have very much room, but I did have a few dogwood trees. And the gardener that kind of came, landscape guy that came to kind of help guide me when I was putting them in, told me I would regret the dogwoods because they were, you know, they were going to take constant maintenance. He was wrong. You know, if it's something you love, you don't mind maintaining it. Maybe the people that have the house now, maybe she doesn't like it, but I had what I called Dogwood Alley, and I had dogwoods. We had this very narrow side yard where you could get from the courtyard in the front to the backyard, and we had dogwoods staggered on either side, and they grew an archway over that little narrow side yard. And in the summertime, the flowers that were at the top of that arch were immense, and the bees were going crazy, and the hummingbirds loved it, and I love Dogwood Alley. So what I'm doing now, after I've pounded a little bit to figure out where the leaves are, I took my bone folder and just kind of stretching the juice. Now the reason, if you haven't done any flower pounding or leaf pounding before, you need to break up the leaf or the flower, in my case the leaf, because I want to get the chlorophyll out, because it's that chlorophyll that's going to transfer to the page and give me my print. And the bone folder, just kind of any of the areas that maybe the hammer didn't get. I don't have my favorite bone folder there, so that comes up a little bit later. But it just kind of spreads the juice around, you know, and then I'm pressing on it, and it's kind of like a jelly print without the paint. So I put a little bit of something hard underneath there, because I was worried that because the book was so soft, maybe I wasn't getting as good of an impression as I could get. And I liked putting the white paper over the top. It did protect the hammer a little bit, and then it kind of gave me an idea where the outline was so that I could transfer. And then the bonus is you get a print on the paper, so you could actually use that print in collage pieces if you wanted to. See, I switched. I got my other bone folder now. I like that one a lot better. I'm just kind of trying to spread the juices around a little bit. And this was very addicting to me. I had to be careful that I wasn't just cutting the heck out of my poor tree out there, because I really, it's exciting when you find something new that you enjoy doing and that really didn't take any really big investment of time or equipment. I had my little jewelry hammer, I had had blank sketchbooks, I had papers, and I had leaves. My goodness, I have half an acre of leaves here. I can't wait to go around the garden and grab all the different leaves and see what they're going to do for me. But I started with the dogwoods because when I learned how to propagate them, and I mean, they're so fast, I just can cut off a piece of dogwood and stick it in the dirt. I don't have to do anything to it, and then it takes off. When we came to this property, we didn't have any trees. We had four big oak trees, and that was it. There were no plants. There was just a giant batting cage in the backyard, and it was pretty much a moat in the wintertime because the ground was so compacted that the water wouldn't drain. And so I started sticking dogwoods in the ground all over the place. Oh, we're going to take a look and see what do we get here. Look at that. Oh, isn't that awesome? Look at that. This 2 sets of leaves from the same tree. I've got green. I've got red. I mean, how cool is that? Just from the leaf, just the chlorophyll of the leaf transferring onto the page. Anyway, the reason I planted dogwoods is so that they could help break up that compacted soil. And breaking up that compacted soil so that the worms could come up from way down deep, and they could come up and, the worms are so important in your garden, people. The worms did their job then as they're making their little tunnels all over the place, and that would allow more of the water to percolate down below because the dogwoods had started to open things up. There were a couple other plants that I also put in the ground just to do that as well, but dogwoods were one of the first, and like I said, it was the first plant I learned how to propagate, so it's got a special place in my heart, and we now have a couple of areas in the yard down below that have not quite Dogwood Alley, but it's getting close. So let's see, I'm just going to kind of play around with here a little bit more on the leaves. I want to, I'm not trying to make it, like I said, a piece of art that's going to hang on the wall, but I want to think about these dogwoods, the different sizes of the leaves, the colors, the shapes. I did try on one of my experimental pieces, I tried stitching some of my dried dogwood leaves on there, and that didn't work so well. It didn't work so well. So I really have to practice that. Like I said, there are a couple of gals in the group that have been doing some stitching with leaves, and they're doing a really fabulous job. So I got to do that some more. But I really, the experimental phase of our art, that's what gives us that's what brings our heart to the art. If we want them all to look the same, well, let's just all grab a paint by number kit. And we'll all sit down and we're going to look at the little color chart. And we're going to look at the little numbers and we're going to, paint exactly like the picture. And then pretty soon they're going to be a whole world of paint by number things. Isn't that cool? Now, don't get me wrong. If you like paint by number stuff, go for it. Have a blast. That's fine. But if you want to grow as an artist, as a creative person, you have to accept the fact that you're going to have a lot of stuff that you're going to do that's going to turn out like crap. It's just not going to come out right. You're going to be disappointed because you're going to have this vision of something that's ready to hang, over the fireplace in the living room, or it's going to go in an art gallery, and you're just getting started and doing this, and you can beat yourself up so easy. And I did it. I did it with this one. My experimental pieces that I did, I looked at them and I went, well, yep, I learned how to do that. Boy, this is nothing. Some of those artists, that I see in the art galleries where they're all with natural materials, they would never do something like this. Well, how do I know? I don't have their sketchbooks right here. I don't know what steps they had to go to before they had this beautiful something that was hanging on the wall. And not everything we make is the art that's going to go on the wall. And there's nothing wrong with that. I got to remind myself that all the time. The joy is in the process. The joy is in the creating. The joy is in the exploring, that idea of, whoa, what would happen if I took this and I took this and I did that? And then we see somebody else doing it, and they did something, this little tweak over here, and they added this over there, and you go, ooh, now that gives me an idea. I'm going to go back and I'm going to experiment. I'm going to play some more. And as a result, everybody's creating stuff that is absolutely unique to them. And that little charge that you get when you do something like that, I say that it's kind of fuel for future art. It's the energy that unfurls and comes out through my fingertips onto the page. It does, honestly. People will tell me when it's something that I have created with heart, art with heart, they can tell. And when it's something that I did because I watched somebody do it and I felt like I was supposed to do it too, and I try and do that, is not so fun. Okay, you can see here I had the camera off, and off camera, I guess I forgot to do that. I wrote the date and the red twig dogwood and Navarro wilds, which is the name of our place. And I wanted to add some color. So I just took a leaf and I just crumpled it up, and look at that. It's like doing a watercolor, right? I've added some color to the page with the leaf. How cool is that? That's one of the red ones, and then I'm going to grab one of the green ones and see if we can put a little frame around that. Now, stick with this because this is not the end. There's some more really fun stuff coming up with the same idea because I decided to have a little bit more of a play. So see, it's a different color. Look at that. Different colors. Literally, I had to, after I did the first play with the dogwood leaves, I confess, I went out and grabbed 20 different leaves in the yard, so I kind of have an idea what's coming next. And I really am looking forward to playing with these some more. I have added to this since I did the video, and I will, each time I work in it, I will show you what I've added to the page. But pretty much pleased me a lot right there. So then I decided to see what else I could do with the leaves. And I didn't have any charcoal sticks, just pencils, and the pencil broke. And, but I decided I'd go ahead and try and do a rubbing. This was with some tracing paper. And I had this idea of putting that in the book too. I think at the end I decided it was okay, but it didn't get me very excited about it. You could also do, crayon rubbings. That would be another great start with a leaf project. You could do them with Inktense pencils. You could do them with watercolor. But I wanted to give it a shot, and I did. I played around with it a little bit and then decided I'm very uncoordinated with charcoal. So that just means if I want to do more work with charcoal, I just need to experiment some more, right? I just need to play around some more with the charcoal and see where it takes me. And there's nothing wrong with that. I did this. I'm glad I did this. I reminded myself that I need to order some charcoal sticks. But I'm not going to beat myself up. I didn't take that piece of paper when I was done with it. I didn't crumple it up because it was a good experiment. I needed to do an experiment like that to see how I felt about it. Is this something that I want to spend some time learning how to do? If nothing else, it helped me get the shape of the leaf into my brain, because that's the kind of stuff, it's not muscle memory because I didn't draw it over and over again, but it's a memory of a leaf that matters to me. And this is all it's all food for our creativity. Doing all these different things, whether they work or not, is food for our creativity. And I hope that you're not beating yourself up over projects that didn't turn out maybe the way that you thought they would. So I decided to put that aside and go on to my next experiment. And I was real excited about this next one. So I got so excited with this next project. Again, I'm still working just with my dogwood leaves, but I wanted to try it on fabric. Now, maybe you've done this before. Maybe you've been doing this for years. If so, I'm jealous because I had not done this before. I had done some flower pounding on paper and had not been really impressed with it. But I wanted to try it on fabric because, of course, then you can sew the fabric into your journals. You can do some slow stitching with it. You can do all sorts of things with it. And again, there are other ways. I'm going to do some experiments doing them a little bit differently based on some of the research that I was doing. But for right now, I just did it the same way I did the paper. I put the piece of fabric down, and these are all just little scraps of cotton or linen that I have. I just put the piece of fabric down on a piece of paper and then put the piece of paper over the top and pounded the heck of it out of it. And let me put it this way. I let out this little yip when I finished doing this that my husband came running in to figure out what was going on because he thought something had happened and I'd gotten hurt. And instead, I was just so excited because I could see the potential. And that's what you get from experimenting is you get these little charges and these new ideas or new to you ideas. And you can start to, you put them together and you say, well, I could do this with a piece of slow stitching and I could do this on my journal and I could make a belly band out of this and I could put this onto a tote bag that I make. There's just, there's ideas, they're everywhere. Anybody that tells me they don't know what to do next, I'm sorry. Just sit with yourself for a minute and think. Just sit with yourself for a minute and think about what excites you. The whole reason I'm doing a project called Start with a Leaf is because, you guessed it, leaves excite me. Why? Well, because when I look at a leaf, the first thing I notice are the veins of the leaf. I notice how they all come to a point to that center part of the leaf, and that leaf is connected to a branch, and that branch is connected to the trunk of the tree, and the trunk of the tree is connected to the roots of the tree, and the roots of the tree go down underground to the microherds that do all that hard work, which allows the tree to grow up to the sky and give us the leaves. I mean, that circle of life to me, that excites me. If I can base a lot of my art around that, I know that my heart, my joy is going to come through my art because you're going to see it. You're going to see what I feel. You really are. You're going to see what I feel on the page. Here we go, big reveal. Are you ready? Okay, those are still the leaves themselves that are still on there. Look at that. It looks like I stamped it on there, right? With ink. How amazing is that? I am so happy. Literally, I am just like, woo! And look, so you still have some prints on the paper. So you can do something with that. And those little scraps of the leaves over there, I saved those too. I'll show you how I saved those, and I haven't used them yet. I've got to let them dry a little bit more, but I have a plan for those as well. So I'm going to pound some more fabric just so you can get some more ideas. I wanted to try it on a piece of my dyed fabric, but this was just so, made me happy. I was doing it. I let the camera running. It's not that I'm doing anything different from one to the next. It was just, I was having such a good time. I didn't even turn around to turn off the camera. I just wanted to keep doing this. And when you get something like that, when you find something in your creative moment that makes you happy, unless you've got to stop and cook dinner for, your 2-year-old that's tugging on the side of your pants, keep doing it. If it's at all possible, keep doing it. I mean, I'm lucky. I know I have the freedom to create pretty much whenever I want to. And I'm very, very grateful for that. I do not take that for granted. But I was in the moment, and I have a big stack of stamped fabric now. I think you're supposed to treat it with a vinegar solution to set the chlorophyll into the fabric. So I will be doing that. But right now, I just wanted to see how many more pieces of fabric I could do and share with you and maybe inspire you. Look at that, the red leaf on the green fabric. I mean, I'm thrilled. I could not be happier. I will totally take that and stitch that onto something else. And then I still have, like I said, the little leaf pieces. And what I'm going to do with the leaf pieces, it's going to be another experiment because that's what it's going to be about, right? What I want to do, all these leaves that I have crushed to get the color out of, and the branches that I have crushed, I'm saving all of that. I've got some leaves soaking right now, and I'm going to go out and boil them later and see if I can get some ink out of them, because when I put some boiling water over them, I did get some color from the leaves just doing that. So I'm hoping that boiling them for a couple hours will give me a little bit of something that I can splash on the page. But then I got another idea to use all the leftover bits, because I don't want to, I could put it out in the compost heap, I could throw it out in the garden and, it could get composted. But what if I could use every scrap of the leaf? What if I could use it all to create something artistic, right? Not necessarily great art that's going to hang on the gallery, because that is not my goal. I want to make art that people want to buy. I mean, I'm not nuts. We all like to make money, right? We need to buy those craft supplies. Paint is not cheap. Sewing machine thread, holy cow, that's not cheap either. I want to make art that you want to buy. I want to create artistic things that speak to my soul, though. And a lot of that is going to be stuff that's just going to sit here in the corner of the studio, and I'm going to pull it out of the basket every so often, and I'm going to go, whoa, I made that. I remember when I did that. That gets me excited to think about building up. Sorry for Zoe going crazy. That's the only apology you're going to get out of me today. Sorry for Zoe barking, but she's doing her watchdog thing. I want to create a body of work that is so great that it becomes, not that it's so great that it's like perfect, that it's so great in immenseness, that there's so much of it that to me it becomes like an everyday habit. Art is not a habit for me yet. True confession. The people that say I'm going to do art 20 minutes a day, I'm going to art for an hour a day, I'm going to art every single day. Awesome sauce, guys. That's fabulous. I don't art every day. Sometimes I go in a zone and I art every day for a week or 2 or 3. Sometimes I art every other day. Sometimes, probably about 3 days is about the most that goes by. Oh, that's one of my favorites. Look at that. All the little holes in the leaf are there. Love it, love it, love it. You got the red, you got the green. Totally going to be using that in a project. Decided to try a tea bag. Mixed results. But why not try? What else can you print on besides the paper? Might as well give it a shot and see what happens. And like I said, mixed results. Some of it was okay. Some of the rest of it, not so much, but we have to give it a try. And there's so many other things you can do with the tea bags anyways, in addition to this. I could put a tea bag underneath a piece of my fabric and then stitch that to something else. And I put the tea bag first under the fabric because I thought maybe some of the color would go through, and it might have. That's unfortunately a thicker piece of linen. If I'd been using one of the thinner pieces of linen, it probably would have transferred through the way it transfers onto the white page. But I also think there might be something in the tea bag that made it not accept the color as easily as just the paper did. But it was good. I did it a couple times, and the second time came out a little bit better than the first one. But let's see what we get here. So I don't know. I hope you guys are getting jazzed about doing things with leaves. And if you're not jazzed about doing things with leaves, tell me. Tell me what you are excited to be experimenting with. What is it right now that you want to experiment with? Not sometimes because we want to get better at it, but sometimes just because you want to explore. Tell me about your explorations in art right now. I want to hear it. I want to know. I'm going to be making ink, which is new to me. And I'm real excited about that. And I'm going to be doing more of these things with the leaves. And then I've got a couple more ideas of some things to play around with. Those of you that have already joined the Facebook group, I want to say thank you right now. Thank you for being such a supportive group for our little art community. It's not just a junk journal community. It's a community of creative artists. Okay, here's the first experiment. The linen came out really good. Love that. Did not transfer down like I was thinking it would. See, it went down to the paper, but it didn't transfer onto the tea bag. But those of you in the group, it's not just about junk journaling. It's not about photography or painting or sculpting. It's about all of that. It's about being a creative person and wanting to find that creative energy that happens when a bunch of artistic people get together. And even if you don't think you're artistic, maybe you appreciate art. We need people to admire our art. You're all welcome there. You don't have to be at a certain stage. You do have to answer questions before you can get in, though, so make sure you've done that. Okay, that's the only sales pitch I'm going to do for the group. I'm trying to be really good about not begging, because begging doesn't do good for either one of us. Okay, so that one I got a great print on the paper and a little bit more on the tea bag, but that's probably not something I'm going to do a whole lot more of. It didn't excite me. There there are other things you can do. Now, this is a scrap I'd torn off to kind of straighten out one of the pieces of fabric. And I thought, well, what if I just piled the leftover leaves on there just to get some color, because I can then stitch that to a page somewhere, and I will do that eventually. I will probably stitch that into the book along with maybe some branches from the tree. So it's another experiment. It was just a scrap piece of paper that I would have put in the little basket that I, then when I have leftover paint, I dip all my leftover scraps of fabric in the paint and get some color on them that way. It's just another way of getting color on the fabric. Don't worry about the end result. I didn't have a plan for what I was going to do with these things. I'm just making them. I'm not going to worry about the end result. I'm just going to work and have fun experimenting and playing. And then the time's going to come and I'm going to go, oh yeah, remember when I stamped that scrap of fabric with all the leftover leaves? I know exactly what I'm going to do with that. But I'm not going to be focused on the end result. I want to be focused on the joy that I'm getting with these experiments, because gosh, I had a blast. So a Sunday art day was a really Sunday fun day for me. I hope that you are having fun with whatever you're working on right now. I'd love to hear about your projects. Let me know down in the comments. If you have any questions about anything, please let me know down there. And, I just, again, want to send lots of love and thank yous to all of you for the support that you give me and my art, my videos, my posts on Instagram. Thank you so much, because your words, your feedback to me, it really is the energy that fuels me to come back here into the studio and do something and share it with you. Because the sharing is like when I would write a book. It's the sharing the story that makes it complete. It's the circle. Those are the leftover pieces I'm saving. And like I said, I'll tell you why when I use them. But I'm going to wait for them to dry a little bit more. So share your story. Share your art. Our collective energies are going to make us stronger. They're going to make us more focused. It's going to make us more excited about our art. It's going to make us want to go out there and play. So I hope you'll join me for the next video. I hope you'll join me over in the group. And I hope that you will go out and share, support, and connect with your fellow artists. Let them know what they're doing is wonderful. Let them know what you love most about what it is that they're working on. Let them know you see their art. You see them. Because I see you. I see all of you. And I am so glad you're in my corner of the world. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.